Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Books Weekly, my Sunday video in which I discuss the books that I've finished from a previous week or read last week or started last week. And the first book I want to talk to you about is the book that I finished from the previous week, and that is A.S. Byatt, Possession. This book was published in 1990 and won the Booker Prize, the Man Booker Prize, the same year. And I'm reading it, as I think I said that in my previous video already, for a book club group on Goodreads called Man Bookering. You will find links, of course, down below. And in that group, we read the long list of the Man Booker Prize and the Man Booker International. And in between the prizes, we read the backlist. So we read previous winners, and we vote for a book every month, and in November it was Possession by A.S. Byatt. Now, A.S. Byatt, I don't think needs much of an introduction. Most of you will know her, or at least know of her. She is a British writer born in the 1930s, and she published multiple novels, award-winning novels and short stories. And this one, like I said, won the Man Booker in 1990. Now, if you read A.S. Byatt before, then you will probably know her style. It's quite a lavish style, and it's no different in this book. The book is set in 1986-87, and we follow a literature scholar called Roland Mitchell, who works on an invented poet, the work of an invented poet called Henry Ash, a Victorian poet. Now, during his work on that poet, he encounters letters and thinks that there might be an hitherto unknown love affair with a woman called Christabel Lamotte. Roland then searches out a scholar of Christabel Lamotte, Maud Bailey, and together they investigate. They try to find letters in both the estates, and we switch perspective from the research done by Roland and Maud back to the Victorian age when Henry Ash lived. He was married to a woman called Ellen, so the affair that the two scholars want to uncover must have been hidden. So we switch perspectives between the two. In the book, there are poems written by Henry Ash, aka A.S. Byatt, because it's an invented poet. There are letters of journal entries, and I have to say, I really love the book. But as I said in the beginning, A.S. Byatt has quite a flowery, lavish writing style. For me, in this book in particular, it's also used, I thought, to be satirical a little bit, to satirize the lavish style of certain quote-unquote literary writers, and especially satirize the way scholars treat literary work of the past, the Victorian age. Because you not only have Roland as the main figure, but you have his boss called Professor Blackadder. I have to smile every time I read that. You have his competing colleague who also wants to uncover the mystery behind Henry Ash's life. So you get a lot of inside views into the competitive world of scholarship. Because there's so little at stake, the competition is high, you might say. If you don't like that, and I can understand that if you're not into that style and into the inclusion of letters and poems, then I'm not sure Possession would be the best book to start with if you want to read A.S. Byatt. But if the story sounds interesting, and one of the members in the Goodreads group called it, rightfully, the Da Vinci Code for literary readers, because it is really a mystery, all the clues in the letters and how they fit, and how the different protagonists try to uncover the truth, has something that would remind you of the story of the Da Vinci Code. But it's written in a really different style. So to finish my sentence, if the story sounds at all interesting to you, you might want to check out the Goodreads group and the various reviews and discussion points people give, and maybe download, the Kindle sample and see whether the writing style appeals to you. It's not a thin novel. The font is really tiny, and it's over 500 pages. So I loved it, but I don't think the style in which it's written is for everyone. After the ghosts of the past, people trying to uncover ghosts of the past, moving on to the ghosts of the future, because the next two books I read this week were sci-fi books. And the first one is Autonomous by Annalee Newitz, published in September of this year. And Annalee Newitz is a journalist, or has worked as a journalist, and Autonomous is her first novel. Autonomous is set in a dystopian future in the United States, and that's a future where you have medication for everything. Medication to improve your work ethics, to sleep, to improve your sex life. You name it, you got a drug for it. The only problem is that most of the drugs are only available to the rich. So the poor can't even get the drugs they need for treatment, so cancer treatment, for instance. The main protagonist, or I should say one of the main protagonists, is a woman called Jack. It's her nickname, Jack Chen, which I don't know whether it's intentional to remind you of Jackie Chan, the actor. But anyway, her name is Jack Chen, and she used to be a pharmacologist doing research, but then certain events in her life, which will be explained in the book, she became a medical pirate, so to speak. So what she does is she distributes medicine for free to the poor, which she steals, obviously. And in order to finance that, she also reverse engineers designer drugs to sell on the black market. One of those drugs she just recently reverse engineered and sold is a drug to enhance working. But obviously the drug has a fatal flaw, because people who take it can't stop working. So they are not able, if they want to, clean the floor because they are a janitor, they can't stop cleaning and they will die. And when Jack learns that, she tries to find out what is wrong with the original drug and tries to stop it. She is helped by a young boy she encounters at the beginning of the book called 3Z. So the number 3 and the letter Z. Because this dystopian world also has slavery. Children or people without money who are just sold in order to provide certain services, sex among them, but all kinds of services. So you have Jack and this young boy on the one side, trying to find out what was wrong with the drug invented by that very powerful drug company and stop it. On the other side of the spectrum, you have an intelligent computer, an artificial intelligence called Paladin, who is teamed up with an ex-military man, a soldier called Elias, in order to stop Jack. From the perspective of the drug company and the government, Jack is considered a terrorist because she steals drugs, she reverse engineers drugs, and she sells them on the black market. So in the book, we switch perspective between those two groups, so to say. I liked the story. I thought it was really fast-paced. It was well written. The two perspectives I liked because they were both good and bad at the same time, if you know what I mean. They were a little morally gray, both of them, which I really liked, that you didn't have this very clear-cut black and white good and bad guys. You could see some reasoning, some valid reasoning in the government why they treated Jack as a terrorist. And Jack did stuff in her past that is not morally good. So I like that. I like the combination. And what I especially like, what I thought was the strongest point of the book, is the character of Paladin, the artificial intelligence robot. Um, but there were some tropes about relationships and how they were treated that I thought were a little meh. And the ending also fell a little bit flat for me. So I liked it, but I didn't love it. But still, if you are, you know, like to read sci-fi and a sort of a fast-paced a dystopian novel with quite an interesting set of characters and an unusual premise and unusual characters, then I can certainly recommend that you read Autonomous. Future Ghosts, also the topic of the next book, also sci-fi, dystopian sci-fi, and that book is The Unit by Swedish writer Ninni Holmqvist, translated into English by Marlaine Delargy. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name. I read this book for a fairly new book club on Goodreads, established by Yamini over at The Skeptical Reader, whom you definitely should subscribe to if you are not already. And in this book club, we alternate. 1 month we read translated fiction written by women, and the next month we read non-fiction. And in November, when the book club started, we chose Sweden as the country we want to read from, and the book was The Unit. Now, Ninni Holmqvist is a Swedish writer, obviously. Mainly writes short stories, but also has written 1 or 2 novels. The Unit is set in a dystopian future. It's not quite clear when, but it's not too far in the future because people can still remember when the things were like they are now. And the main character is called Dorrit, a 50-year-old writer. The dystopian aspect of the future is that there are new laws that people above a certain age, 50 for women, 60 for men, if they don't have children or a really, really important job, they are deemed dispensable. And then they are brought to the unit. And the unit is sort of a paradise from the outside, because you don't have to pay rent, you get lavish food, you are... you have a theater and a library and parks and swimming pools and gyms and all that. But the purpose of you being there is to be useful. And that means that you have to participate in medical experiments, either testing new drugs who give you rashes all over, or psychological experiments. But also you have to start to donate certain organs, like part of your eye or a kidney or a part of your ear. And in the end, you have to make what is called a final donation. You have to donate your hearts and lungs. If you're healthy, that is. So the life expectancy for people in the unit is not great. Now, let me be frank from the start, I thought the book was a bit of a dud. I liked the premise. I thought the idea of people becoming dispensable and what does it mean to be useful, quote unquote, in a society was interesting, even though when the book was published in 2006, there was Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go, published just a year before, where the whole idea of people cloned for the sole purpose to make donations, to donate organs, is the main theme of the book. So it sounded like a bit of a ripoff, but still, the premise was interesting. I also thought the ending was good. I will not give away the ending, but I thought that was interesting. But the whole thing in between, nah. A good premise doesn't make for a good story, and there was just not enough of a story. There was no progress. Dorrit meets people, and then she meets a man just in his early 60s. They fall in love, and the story, quote unquote, story takes off from there. But there is just too little progress. There is nothing moving. You get this idea. There's also too many cliched statements about politics. There are explanatory plot holes, for instance. It's never explained why people in Sweden, when they reach the certain age, why they are not immigrating to another country, because it's a Swedish thing, these new laws. So stuff like that, I never felt the book was genuine or authentic. I saw the author moving, the protagonist from side to side in order to have something on the page so that we could get from one plot point, the beginning, to a next plot point and to the end. So unfortunately, not a good book. Sorry, guys. And then very briefly, the last book, the book that I've just started, and we're moving back to the Ghosts of the Past, because I chose a memoir, Joan Didion, Blue Nights. This is a reread for me. It's a memoir about the death of Didion's daughter, Quintana, who died when Quintana was 39. Didion has written 2 grief memoirs. One is The Year of Magical Thinking, after her husband died all of a sudden, and then shortly after her husband died, her daughter died, and that is the second memoir, Blue Nights, which I will read next week. So this was it for my Books Weekly and this Sunday. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. I'm looking forward to your comments as always. Talk to me about the books I've mentioned or other books you like to talk to me about, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.